in SSD Marikina, Watson's in SM Supercenter Pasig, Generika Drugstore Signal 1 in Taguig City, and the Generics Pharmacy in Sun Valley, Parañaque City. While a person may choose their preferred vaccine brand, it would still depend on the supply.
For today, ang nakaregister sa amin is 150 person na pupunta between 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m.
Pharmacies may only administer booster shots to adults but not to senior citizens and persons with comorbidities. While 2 medical clinics will start on Friday, where unvaccinated and partially vaccinated 12 to 17-year-olds may get their primary series vaccines. The clinics may also give booster shots to adults, including senior citizens and persons with comorbidities.
At least yung mga taong babakunahan ng ating mga butika, meron ng patunay na okay na yung kanilang first and second dose of the primary series. Ngayon, yung mga iba naman, kailangan mo pa ng extra precaution. Yung mga doktor dapat andon, just in case magkaroon ng major side effects.
This will soon be rolled out in the provinces but only in selected pharmacies depending on the size and layout of the establishment. The venue should have an ample space to allow social distancing and to separate regular customers from vaccinees.
When asked why only now, when other countries have started doing it over a year ago,
Hindi katulad ng mga mayayamang bansa, noong unang 2021, marami na silang supply. Tayo nag-antay. Kanya hindi naman natin kaagad mapalawig yung ating res bakuna program.
vaccines in pharmacies and clinics are free of charge. The government will supply the syringes and train more pharmacists for the rollout in the provinces. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
Well, aside from pharmacies, a public transport terminal will also hold a 5-day COVID-19 vaccination drive for commuters and transportation workers. Well, the mobile vaccine drive has been set up at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, or PITX. Inoculation will be from January the 24th to the 28th from 8 in the morning until 12 noon. 500 vaccine doses will be given daily, and this is open for walk-in vaccinees with registration done on site. Well, children as young as 3 may soon be allowed to take the same Sinovac vaccine administered to adults. Sinovac has applied to amend its existing emergency use authorization so its vaccine can be used for children 3 to 11 years old. The Chinese company's EUA application also covers those aged 12 to 17.
Ang kagandahan po nun is wala pong pagkakaiba sa formulation yung in-apply ng Sinovac. So, abangan natin at hintayin natin ang approval at ang review ng ng FDA at ng vaccine expert panel.
Inoculation of children aged 5 to 11 against COVID-19 is scheduled to start next month. Experts say COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila are decreasing after recording a negative weekly growth rate for the first time since December the 24th of last year. Guido David of the Octa Research Group says NCR, or the National Capital Region, has a negative 10% weekly growth rate, while the reproduction rate, or the average number of people infected per COVID-19 case, declined to 1.79 from 4.24 last week. Despite this, David says Metro Manila is still at critical risk as its average daily attack rate and positivity rate remains above critical levels. Residents are advised not to be complacent and still comply strictly with minimum public health standards. Moving now to headlines overseas, Japan is again tightening restrictions in its capital, Tokyo, and other areas due to soaring COVID-19 infections. Majority are fully vaccinated, but very few have received their booster shots. CNN's Selena Wang reports from Tokyo on how the government is working to change all of this.
Japan will put Tokyo and 12 other prefectures under a quasi-state of emergency. COVID-19 cases are surging rapidly across the country on Tuesday reporting a record high of more than 30,000 cases. But according to government data, only 281 people were in serious condition. Now, under a quasi-state of emergency, authorities can ask restaurants to shorten hours and stop serving alcohol. Residents are also asked to avoid traveling. Now, Japan has frequently enacted state of emergencies throughout the pandemic. Last fall, Japan lifted a months-long state of emergency. After a slow start, Japan now has widespread vaccination, but its rollout of booster shots has been slow. Japan has fully vaccinated roughly 80% of its population, but only about 1% of its population has received a booster shot as of January 10th. The government has pledged to speed up the pace, announcing this week that it would help local governments establish large-scale vaccination centers for boosters. Japan had managed to curb COVID-19 cases last fall, with the daily case counts falling to just a few hundred a day. Selena Wang, CNN, Tokyo.
The White House is also taking steps to stem a surge in cases in the United States. CNN's Isabel Rosales details efforts to make tests and masks widely available as the Omicron wave appears to be nearing its peak in some states.
Free N95 masks are coming to a pharmacy or health center near you starting next week. It's the latest step to try to rein in the COVID-19 surge. 400 million masks coming out of the national stockpile.
Masks are one of the fundamental tools to help us get out of this.
Just days ago, the CDC updated its mask guidance, saying cloth masks do not offer as much protection as federally approved masks. And new data from the agency shows the unvaccinated are 13 times more likely to end up hospitalized.
We really need to rely on immunization.
The website covidtest.gov, offering free tests, is up and running. But now the pressure is on the U.S. Postal Service to deliver.
I would be very worried about getting a test in any kind of timely manner.
Despite mail delays and more than 19,000 postal workers out sick or in quarantine, USPS insists it can keep up. Plus, early signs that Omicron may have reached its peak in the U.S. overall, according to Johns Hopkins University. Average new daily COVID cases have dropped 2% week to week. Areas like D.C., Maryland, New Jersey, and New York are seeing a sharp decline.
Let's be clear on this. We are winning.
But the World Health Organization noting that rates elsewhere remain high and climbing, as 6 states saw daily cases jump more than 50%. While the CDC predicts over 61,000 new deaths in the next month.
No country is out of the woods yet.
In Washington, Isabel Rosales.
But in Germany, it looks like cases may not peaking anytime soon. Well, the country logged over 112,300 new infections on Wednesday, the first time daily cases surpassed the 100,000 mark since the global health crisis began. Germany continues to struggle with a slow vaccination rollout. Only about 73% of its population are fully vaccinated so far. Well, moving back to developments here at home, the country records its lowest population growth in more than 7 decades. Experts say stress and anxiety over the pandemic has led to a lack of intimacy among couples. AC Nichols reports.
Mr. and Mrs. Cruz have been married for 10 years. They have a 9-year-old daughter. The couple wanted another child, a baby boy. But when the pandemic struck, they were forced to put their plan on hold. Both lost their jobs in the food industry. Today, they're selling street food to get by.
Hindi na namin tinuloy dahil sa liit na ng budget na dumadating dahil wala na kaming ganun na trabaho na hindi katulad dati, dalawa kami. Nabibili namin yung gusto namin, nakakakain kami sa gusto namin. Ngayon, budgeted na lang talaga yung namin, yung paglabas ng pera dahil sa hirap.
Apparently, their case is not unique. The Commission on Population and Development, or POPCOM, says more Filipinos choose not to have babies due to economic uncertainties brought about by the pandemic. POPCOM says there's been an increase in the use of family planning methods, with some barangay health centers running out of contraceptives like pills and condoms. This led to an expected population growth of just 0.3% or over 300,000 in 2021, the country's slowest population growth in 75 years. For the government, this is good news.
Increased family planning use leading to lower population, which is actually what we were working for. But around 2025 was when we thought that would happen. I think the COVID situation and the economic crisis have brought it on much earlier.
Psychiatrist Dr. Babes Arsena is not surprised. She says the pandemic brought extra stress and anxiety to people's lives, leading to less intimacy among many couples. Millions have been infected with the coronavirus, while poverty incidence rose to 23.7% last year compared to 2018's 21.1%. Aside from economic struggles, parents are also overwhelmed by their children's distance learning education.
There are more important things that we have to tackle, and the sexual intimacy is being set aside. Parents assume different roles. So, pagod na sila pagdating ng gabi, no? So, wala nang energy.
Experts say another factor is that many family members are spending more time at home, making it difficult for couples to make time for intimacy.
1/3 of the houses in Metro Manila are smaller than 20 square meters.
Oh my gosh,
So
that makes
20
it
square
virtually
meters
impossible. Yeah.
is 2 pool tables together. So if you're all together there, it's really difficult to get the intimacy and other things, to get the mood right and everything.
The POPCOM expects to see a sustained slow population growth beyond the pandemic, as the economic crisis could go on for a long time. E.C. Nichols, CNN Philippines.
And straight ahead on Newsnight, the government draws flack for its plan to import galunggong and other fish. And Lolo Leonardo of Pangasinan, who was jailed for allegedly stealing mangoes, is released after posting bail. More news when we return. Stay with us. And beyond the headlines, I'm Rico Hizon, sitting in for Pia Ontiveros. The Agriculture Department defends its decision to import 60,000 metric tons of fish in the first quarter of the year amid criticism from various sectors. Paulo Barcelon joins us now for more on this story. So, Paulo, what did the Agriculture Department say about importing fish this year?
Secretary William Dar says the impact of Typhoon Odette on the fisheries sector is among the reasons why the government decided to import fish. The DA pegs the damage of Typhoon Odette to fisheries and aquaculture at close to 4 billion pesos.
Region na apektado, ang daming mga fishing communities ang apektado, nawalan ng boats, walang fishing gears and the like. So yung capacity nila to fish will be in question.
Dar also reiterated that imports are needed to help bring down prices of fish in the market, claiming that fish is among the chief contributors to food inflation in 2021. Among those that will be imported are pelagic fish such as mackerel and round scad or galunggong. The DA signed the order last Tuesday but has since been getting flack. At least 2 presidential aspirants slammed agriculture officials for the move. Senator Ping Lacson says relying on importation to fix problems in the aquaculture sector is a death blow to the livelihood of farmers and fisher folk. Senator Manny Pacquiao called the move unbelievable for a country surrounded by water and railed on the DA for prioritizing imports over local produce. Meanwhile, Magsasaka Party List Representative Argel Kapatbat says what the country has is an oversupply of importers who insist that foreign players provide food to Filipinos. Kapatbat also sided with the National Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Management Council, who initially said there was no need to issue a certificate of necessity to import fish for the first quarter of 2022. Dar earlier said that while the council can make its own recommendations, their agency is responsible for food security. Senator Amy Marcos, meanwhile, is set to file a resolution this week to investigate this move. Back to you, Rico.
Well, Paulo, the Department of Agriculture has been saying that there's a current deficit of 119,000 metric tons of fish, and the allowable imports approved is only at 60,000. So how do they intend to fill this gap?
Well, Secretary Dar says they plan to address the gap by adding in from last year's quota that are yet to be delivered. Data from the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources show that only close to 15,000 metric tons of fish have been sold in the market out of the 60,000 metric tons allocated to 25 importers who applied for close to 50,000 metric tons of fish imports. Back to you, Rico.
Paulo Barcelon, thank you so much for giving us an update on the importation of fish. Well, the Senate Minority Bloc wants to look into rehabilitation efforts a month after Typhoon Odette battered parts of the Visayas and Mindanao. Senators Franklin Drilon, Kiko Pangilinan, Risa Ontiveros, and Laila de Lima want the Upper Chamber's Finance Committee to assess damage, evaluate government response, and check if funds for recovery are being spent accordingly. Lawmaker says this will help improve the existing disaster response framework. Pope Francis is also giving much needed aid to typhoon victims. The Holy Father will send 100,000 euros or 5.8 million pesos to the local church, which will distribute the funds to dioceses in the worst hit areas. A 80-year-old man is now out of jail after he was allegedly caught stealing 10 kilos of mangoes in Pangasinan. Authorities in Asingan town identified the man as Leonardo Flores or Lolo Narding. He's been under police custody for over a week now after a neighbor accused him of stealing mangoes. Lolo Narding was temporarily released today after posting a bail of 6,000 pesos. In this video, the old man was accompanied by police officers and a lawyer from the public attorney's office. Financial support poured in for Lolo Narding as his story quickly went viral. The Commission on Elections has rescheduled the printing of the first batch of over 67 million target ballots after encountering multiple delays. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez says technical issues have to be addressed while the final look of the ballot is still being finalized. Despite the delay, Jimenez assures the public the printing will be finished on time. COMELEC targets to complete the printing and ballot verification process by April 21st or 2 weeks before voting day. Government-owned National Printing Office will man the process with a peak capacity of producing 1.1 million ballots per day. And now here's an update on the aspirants for the May polls. The Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte tandem add 3 more senatorial picks to their ticket. Suspended lawyer Larry Gadon, Congressman Rodante Marcoleta, and Senator Miguel Zubiri. They now have 10 people in the partial lineup. Gathering mixed reactions from netizens, Sara Duterte says she will make military service mandatory for all Filipino adults, male and female, if elected vice president. A fully implemented Universal Healthcare Act is set to be one of Senator Ping Lacson's priorities should he win the presidential race. If the UHC is properly funded, Lacson says every barangay would be able to directly provide medical services to Filipinos. Presidential aspirant Carl Yodi de Guzman says every candidate should participate in the Commission on Elections national debates. De Guzman stressed this is necessary for voters to have an informed choice. The Manila City government is open to using the Manila Bay Dolomite Beach as a potential vaccination site. Mayor and presidential aspirant Isko Moreno says it may help entice more people to get vaccinated. And presidential hopeful Leni Robredo pushes for a bill that would raise the age of sexual consent from 12 to 16 years old. The bicameral report on the measure only needs President Duterte's signature to become a law. And we'll take this short break on Newsnight where we go above and beyond the headlines. Pinoy boy band SB19's Bazinga tops the Billboard chart for 6 straight weeks. And Netflix drops a trailer of a new Thai sci-fi romance film featuring Mario Maurer. A sneak peek after the break. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can use. News you can trust. Welcome back to CNN Philippines Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Rico Hizon, sitting in for Peon Teveros. Bazinga by pop sensation SB19 has now spent 6 weeks on the top of Billboard's Hot Trending Songs chart. This feat means the group is 1 week closer to beating the last reigning single on the list, BTS's Butter. Fans of both groups are now fighting to claim the #1 spot with both Butter, Believe It, and Bazinga, Keep the Bus, trending on Twitter today. Well, fans of the 2010 movie Crazy Little Thing Called Love are in for a treat with this new Netflix film. Mario Maurer and Bayfrin Pimchanok, stars of the famous Thai rom-com, are reuniting for A1 Love You. Well, the sci-fi romance tells the story of DOB, or Dom, an AI who falls in love with a woman and takes over a man's body to win her heart. Here's a look at the trailer.
มันไม่สำคัญหรอกว่าสิ่งที่ผมพูดมันจะถูกโปรแกรมขึ้นมาหรือเปล่าเพราะความรักที่ผมมีให้คุณมันจริง
เวลาของแกมันหมดแล้ว
Well, I Love You begins streaming right on Valentine's Day, February 15th. Well, more entertainment news today from a sneak peek starring 2 Oscar winners to a pair of major honors. CNN's David Daniel has it all in this Hollywood Minute.
3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky.
Prime Video has revealed the title of its upcoming series about the second age of Middle-earth, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The series debuts September 2nd. Spike Lee is getting the Directors Guild of America's highest honor, the Lifetime Achievement Award. It's not an annual prize. The DGA has given it only 35 times in its 86-year history. Lee will be honored at the DGA Awards on March 12th.
You needed the audience to be grounded in that possibility.
Jon Stewart is this year's recipient of the Kennedy Center's Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. The comedian, TV host, and activist will be recognized at an April 24th gala in Washington, D.C.
This isn't a place for people to punch in and out.
WeWork's role is to elevate the world's consciousness.
Here's your first look at Anne Hathaway and Jared Leto in We Crashed, about the rise and fall of WeWork. The limited series debuts on Apple TV Plus March 18th. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And that's the news tonight. Join me again on The Final Word at 9 p.m. I'm Rico Hizon for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Zinday Utso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dini sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
It's never easy getting sick, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. And now that the flu season is in full swing, the challenge is even greater. Much like COVID-19, influenza or the flu or trangkaso sa Tagalog is also a virus. And getting infected by a virus can happen so very easily through droplets in the air when people with the flu cough, sneeze, or even talk. These droplets can also land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby, which can be inhaled into our lungs. You can also get infected by touching surfaces that are contaminated by germs. But exposure to a virus doesn't mean you will get sick automatically. Your antibodies and immune system can help you fight an infection. But your body can only produce antibodies if you've been exposed to that virus in the past or through a vaccine. This is why we are encouraging everyone to get the flu shot annually. And during this time of COVID-19, you must get vaccinated. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Is it the flu or COVID-19? Is it the common cold or the flu? Our guest today will help us understand the difference. Joining us are Dr. Mercedita Macalintal, who's a pediatrician at Asian Hospital and Medical Center. Also with us is Dr. Cheridin Oro Josef. She's a family and geriatric medicine specialist from Marikina Doctors Hospital and Medical Center. I'll start the conversation with Dr. Cheri. Dr. Cheri, since itong flu attacks natin affects our immune system, our respiratory system, gaano ba kadali ang mahawaan ng trangkaso or ang flu?
It attacks our cells, it makes use of our own machinery, and then they replicate, and then when they replicate, they make daughter cells with the virus, and then infects other cells. So, inside the body, ganun po siya kabilis mag-replicate. Now, from outside naman, if you are very near somebody who is sick, no, na merong flu, may influenza virus, malapit po kayo, nahatching siya, nalanghap mo, bigla ka nag-inhale, napasok sa yung nasal orifices and in your mouth, then you will get infected.
Dr. Cheri, pag-usapan naman natin itong mga simptomas that can that someone can differentiate itong simpon or ang common cold at ang trangkaso para mas aware ang ating mga viewers.
Pag sinabi kasi nating trangkaso, ito po ay meron na tayong infection, no? May virus na pumasok sa ating katawan or any other or microorganism, no, that causes the following symptoms: lagnat, ubo, sipon, sakit ng ulo, sakit ng katawan, parang yung bugbog saradong pakiramdam, you feel fatigued, and sometimes you may have difficulty of breathing because of your frequent coughing, no? So, itong mga sintomas po na ito ay pare-pareho po naman sa lahat ng viruses. Kaya nga, we are saying, unless you flu, COVID-19, and the other viruses, the coronaviruses per se, for example, that causes the common cold, lahat po yan pare-pareho ang sintomas unless we do some testing.
Dr. Mercy, what is a good response kapag ang mga viewers natin ay nakaramdam nitong mga sintomas na ganito?
It is highly contagious if you are not covering your mouth, your eyes, your nose. And when you already have the symptoms, first and foremost that you need to do is to isolate yourself. para hindi na mahawa yung ibang mga tao sa kapaligiran mo, because you are spreading fomites already and there will be a high concentration of viruses in the air. So you have to isolate yourself, put a mask so that you will not spread the virus through the air.
Pagdating sa mga bata, there are a lot of parents also are concerned, ano? When it comes to children, sometimes we see a lot of children, sinasabi lang sakitin ang mga bata na ito. What is the main reason why kids can develop common colds or even the flu more often than adults?
There are seasons, no? Especially now, the colder season, we are more susceptible to develop cough and cold simply because a lot of us are staying indoors. And when we are indoors, the number of people, of course, inside the house are much larger, no? Mas maraming tao sa loob, mas nagiging congested tayo. So, having said that, as I have said earlier, mas mataas yung nagiging viral load ng air or ng fomite sa air. So itong mga batang to, mas nai-inhale nila yung mas maraming number of viruses while they are staying inside.
Other than trying to build up the immune system to fight the cold or yung flu, yung trangkaso, how else can our viewers relieve the symptoms ng flu? From the fever to the aches and pains? As well.
If you don't have the flu yet, you have to strengthen your immune system by, number one, taking enough sleep, because sleep can energize or boost your immune system. Hydrate yourself. Make sure that you are well hydrated. You can take water or juices for that matter. You can also take a lot of supplements. No? There are so many supplements that can boost your immune system, and also some minerals, not only vitamins but also minerals such as your vitamin C, your vitamin D, vitamin A, E, and for the minerals, it's zinc, which are also very important. So all of this, you can take them as a regular measure to strengthen your immune systems to avoid, getting easily flu or any virus for that matter.
Kapag meron ng trangkaso, effective pa ba ang pag-inom ng high doses of all these vitamins and supplements?
I know a lot of people are taking vitamin C, especially when they are sick. Studies have shown that vitamin C will not prevent you from having these viruses, but it can lessen the course or the duration of the illness. While vitamin D is very important because they have studies have shown that it can improve your immune system, because vitamin D has been found out that almost all our cells in the body have a receptor for vitamin D, especially for the immune system cells, that fight infection.
Dr. Cherry, effective bang antibiotics for the treatment of the flu?
Filipinos, sometimes we consult at a later part na of the illness. So kung kailan medyo masama na pakiramdam talaga, marami nang nahihirapan ng huminga sometimes. And sometimes, there's already a bacterial contamination with the virus. That's why you are given antibiotics sometimes when you have that symptoms, because doctors feel you already have a what we call bacterial superinfection. But antibiotic doesn't work for viruses. Okay? So, hindi po gamot ang antibiotics para po sa mga viruses.
So, you have a runny nose or you're super congested. Does it mean that you have the flu right away? How can one tell the difference between the flu and COVID-19? We'll have the answers for you in just a moment. We're together in health here on MedTalk Health Talk, only here on CNN Philippines. This time of the year brings joy to many because the holiday season is here. But it's also associated with the common cold as well as the flu. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk, where your health always comes first. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. We were talking earlier about how the symptoms of the flu and how they all happen relatively quick or sudden, while symptoms of the common cold are, for the most part, milder, and also they gradually develop. Dr. Cherry, how about comparing yung mga simptomas ng COVID-19 at ng flu? Pwede ba natin pag-usapan yun ngayon?
Flu at ng COVID-19 are very similar, no? The usual cough, cold, and fever. I think it's on the length or the time, no? Kung kailan lumalabas yung sintomas. Normally, kapag flu, yung sakit natin, di ba, mabilis po the next day pag nahawa tayo, minsan may runny nose na tayo, masakit na ulo, minsan may low-grade fever, may konting cough, no? So the next day po yun na hawa tayo from somebody who has influenza. Now, with COVID, we notice symptoms may appear on the second day, but normally, typically, on the 5th day and so on, no? Yung symptoms. And then studies have shown even on the 10th day, no? And for some, even on the 20th day, pwede pa mag-manifest yung symptoms nila if it's COVID-19.
Dr. Mercy, pag-usapan natin yung importance ng testing for COVID-19. When our viewers feel any of these symptoms, is it okay for them to assume the worst kaagad?
Unless proven otherwise, we have to have ourselves checked because the symptoms of flu and COVID initially are the same. So we would like to make sure that we are just having a common colds and not a COVID. Of course, there are signs and symptoms of COVID that are also mild, no? Not all COVID are having severe symptoms. So it is always better to have ourselves checked to make sure that we are not having the COVID, but instead just simple seasonal flu.
For parents of children then, when they find that their children have symptoms like what we mentioned earlier, should they also think of it as COVID-19 initially until proven otherwise?
Children are not having a high susceptibility to COVID, okay? We have to make a very good history and of course, with the limited access to face-to-face consultation, I would suggest that they go and seek consultation to their pediatrician for further history taking, and through the help of telemedicine, they can more or less examine the patient through the help also of the parents for the other signs and symptoms to differentiate it, or if a test is needed to further analyze whether it is a flu or a COVID.
Now, Dr. Merce, continuing with children, are there symptoms of the flu that is very evident in children that can help the parents differentiate it from the common cold?
The initial symptoms might be the same, but as the days goes on, it can manifest and it can unfold on a different manner. For example, if it is COVID and the child would not only experience congestion, but they can also experience other systemic manifestations. Some children would have abdominal pain, some children would have diarrhea, in which case we seldom see this in an ordinary flu.
Now, Dr. Cherry, pag-usapan naman natin kung ano ang dapat gawin ng ating mga viewers kapag meron na silang naramdaman symptoms pero wala pa silang test na ginawa for COVID-19. Is the protocols for quarantine or isolation similar whether you have the flu or COVID-19?
Flu and COVID-19 being similar viral infection and also pwede mag-predispose to a complicated disease. Yes po, isolate din po tayo kung ito po ay trangkaso, pakiramdam lang natin, no? Flu, kasi nga wala pa po tayong testing. We have to wear mask, and inside the house, if we can isolate and do not hug your kids, do not embrace everybody when you're feeling all these symptoms. Kasi nga, hindi pa natin alam kung ano po yung meron tayo. So better po to protect the people around us, we better use the mask and use the isolation protocols if we can, and then better to have the test done para meron na po tayong peace of mind.
How about the complications of the flu? Kapag hindi ito naagapan, hindi nakakuha ng tamang pahinga or treatment ang isang taong may flu, how bad can it get?
Ang flu po, pwede din po magkaroon ng komplikasyon na pulmonya, pneumonia. It can also affect yung mga taong may mga chronic diseases. So it can also have effects on the heart, chronic heart diseases. So the lungs, those with asthma and other COPD and other respiratory illnesses, they can be more complicated kung hindi po nagamot o hindi po naagapan ng flu, or nagkaroon po ito ng tinatawag ko nga ng super infection or nagkaroon ng bacterial contamination.
While there are differences, there are also similarities between COVID-19 and the flu. And knowing these can help you understand how you need to be treated and all that you need to do to recover from either one. We'll explain after a very short break. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk here on CNN Philippines. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Our topic for today is the seasonal flu, and cases are common this time of year. During this pandemic, we need to focus even more on our health. Dr. Mers, pagdating sa flu, one of the protections that we advocate is the use of a vaccine. Could you explain to our viewers the benefits of the flu vaccine?
Just like any other vaccination, the principle for getting a vaccine is to develop an antibody from it, so that when the body is exposed to a particular antigen, or like a virus or a bacteria, the immune system will remember them. We call it the memory cell of the body. And in that way, when they remember these viruses or bacteria, it's going to be, they will release soldiers that will fight against these viruses and bacteria.
Para sa mga parents who are thinking that they need the flu vaccine for their children as well, is this a standard vaccine given to children?
It is recommended, especially nowadays that we have COVID, and it is there is a very thin line to differentiate between flu and COVID. So it is wise for us to receive a flu vaccine. At least you have eliminated already the possibility of getting flu.
Vaccine for the flu is not generally indicated for children, but there are vaccine-preventable diseases that are very important to children as well that we'd like to point out for the parents out there. Could you explain a little bit more on these?
Our government have this program, okay? We call them the mass immunization program for children, or the expanded program for vaccination or immunization. So basically, we give them from birth, we give them BCG, that is against for tuberculosis, the hepatitis B, which is a 3 series of vaccination. We give the diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, no? That is for primary vaccination. We give that for 6 weeks of age until about 6 months, and then there will be a booster thereafter. And we also give a series of the rotaviruses. We give series of hepatitis B, and the measles, the chickenpox. So these are important vaccines that has to be given for your children.
Dr. Cherry, pag-usapan naman natin ang flu vaccine at ang pneumonia vaccine. Sino ang pinaka makaka-benefit dito sa mga vaccines na to? And could you explain the difference of the two?
Yung flu vaccine po, of course, it's for the viral influenza. So we have different types of influenza, A and B, no? And the pneumonia vaccine naman po, different strains naman of microorganisms po that causes pneumonia. So may mga bacteria na nagkakos ng pneumonia. So ito po yung bakuna para sa pulmonya. Now, actually, we vaccinate the children and the adults. But for the adults, the older persons, the geriatric population, also recommended to have the flu and the pneumonia vaccines. Why? Because for the older population, ang pneumonia po is the second leading cause of morbidity for them, no? And then also it can cause mortality for them. So we recommend flu vaccine annually and also a pneumonia vaccine every 5 years, no, for our older population para po maproteksyonan sila.
Pag-usapan naman natin ang mga pwedeng home remedies. Ang paborito natin mga viewers, mga home remedies na pwedeng gawin nila kapag meron silang trangkaso.
We can take naman mga pain relievers, no, that can help us tolerate the pain. So pwede tayo mag-paracetamol, etc. Or we drink a lot of water. That's number 1. So 1 glass every 2 to 3 hours will help you hydrate your body and will help you fight the virus. And then you sleep well. matulog po tayo. And then you take also, eat some fruits, which is high in vitamin C. And of course, again, vegetables po.
Dr. Merce, when it comes to protecting children, lalo na ngayon na face-to-face classes are starting, what advice can you give the parents?
Well, number one, always practice good hygiene. You have to teach your children to wash their hands with soap and water or with antiseptic like alcohol every now and then. If before touching a surface, wash their hands with alcohol. After touching their any surfaces like desk or table, then they have to wash their hands as well. And also, they have to constantly wear their mask. Do not put them under their chin or over the head, like ginagawang headband. So, kailangan i-wear natin. And also, we have to practice social distancing. We have to remind our children not to embrace, not to share food if ever, and I'm sure they are not allowed to eat in one place.
Thank you very much for your time, pediatrician Dr. Mercedita Macalintal and family medicine specialist Dr. Cheridin Oro Josef. Thank you very much for your insights and information about the flu. And I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Staying well is key during this time of COVID-19. Thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Sinday Utso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dini sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may dalaon sa katawan, andang na serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.